And I wonder also, as you look just overall now, I don't need specifics, but it appears the Bills have arrived at this point, the eve of the regular season, Chris, in pretty good physical condition. Andre Roberts going to miss today with a quad injury, but they don't really have any major injuries to any players of real major consequence going into this opener. Agreed?
Right, and you hope you get out of today's practice and Friday's practice the same way, no worse for the wear. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think about this, but if you were to talk about the offensive line a month ago, there's no way you would have thought that the line would be this healthy here on Wednesday before week one, the way it all looked. But, yeah, fortunately it came together. You know, the athletic training staff did a good job of getting guys ready for the games that count. And so here we are, you know, with an offensive line that looks fit to go. So, and even, you know, some of the other positions that suffered some injuries through the course of training camp in the preseason are in pretty good shape, all things considered.
The Bills kept 10 offensive linemen on the roster. It's a big number. It's not. You don't usually see teams do that, but I think they feel like they've got a lot of good guys that can really play, and they know how important that spot is. They'd like to keep 10 guys as long as they can if the rest of the team can stay healthy. Have you seen them line up at all as to know what the right side of the offensive line is going to look like?
Not today, but on Monday, the way it started was Feliciano at right guard and then Cody Ford at right tackle. Now, after the initial portion of individual position drills, Ty Nsekhe was rotated in at right tackle, but Cody Ford just rotated out. He did not move inside. So what does that mean? I don't know if it means anything, but Coach McDermott has been pretty evasive in saying that they've nailed down a starting spot for Cody Ford for Sunday and whether they've nailed down a starting five for Sunday. Guys, I'm going to present a different theory to you on this. I don't think the Bills have a top five for their offensive line. I think they have a top six, perhaps even a top seven, and I would venture to guess that it could change week to week, maybe even series to series based on game plans for certain opponents. What do you think about that?
I would first say, Chris, what about the age-old, time-tested concept of continuity being important on the offensive line?
Poppycock. We're going into a new era. We're going into a new era of football here. And if you think about it, you think about how much Bobby Johnson, and the reason I'm thinking this way, guys, is because over the last couple of weeks, the offensive line has gotten a lot healthier, and yet the rotation that we have witnessed in the practice setting has continued in terms of rolling guys through, putting guys in different spots. And I would say your top seven are Deion Dawkins, Quentin Spain, Mitch Morse, John Feliciano, Cody Ford, Ty Nsekhe, and Spencer Long. Those are your top seven. And I think those guys are going to be rolling through, filling any number of roles. And it's not like outside of Cody Ford, you don't have guys that are lacking NFL experience. These are guys that have been plugged into different roles. Chiefly, we're talking about Spencer Long and John Feliciano. Those two guys have been plugged into a number of different places. Cody Ford has experience at guard and tackle. And so I think there is an open-minded view of how they can go into a given game in a given week. Now, obviously, as you get further into the season, injuries may compromise that. But I think there's a real possibility here that you could see different offensive lineups week to week based on the game plan and based on the opponent.
With that in mind, Chris, I just have one more question about this. We want to get to other things out there in the practice field, but what are the specialties of, say, Feliciano or Long or any of the others who might be in and out of the lineup in Nsekhe? You know what I mean? You must have a kind of a game plan type of specific player that you need if you want to do this. What can you give us an idea of what that blueprint looks like?
We've talked about it. Yeah, we've talked about it on the show, guys. You know, we were talking about who the starting five will be, and we said, well, it depends on what Brian Daboll wants. If he wants a more mobile offensive line, then you're probably looking at guys like Spencer Long and Cody Ford, who can kind of get out and pull a little bit more. They're more mobile. If you want to drive people off the line, you're looking at Quentin Spain and, you know, you're looking at John Feliciano. So I think those kinds of combinations while some might argue might be predictable, if you can execute, it's not going to matter. It's like, this is what we're doing, and try to stop it. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't change that midstream in a game. Like, if they have a game plan and they feel like, well, we can get out on the edge on these guys, maybe they start somebody like Long and Ford at guard and use them in a lot of pulling type motions and action. And if that's not working for some reason because the other team has, prepped for it or has an answer for it, well, who's to say you can't make a switch because you got the other two guys up and active anyway, plug them in and change it and go 3 tight ends, put Feliciano and Spain in there and go mash. So I think there's a versatility. I mean, how much have we heard Coach McDermott talk about position flexibility? I think we've heard him talk about it a ton. Well, I'm wondering if the reason they've strived to achieve that position flexibility is for that very reason.
Okay.
Yeah, I think one of the things that lends credence to your wild and harebrained theory is the fact they did keep 10 guys. I mean, they got a lot of guys that can do that. And you're right. It does tend to give you an idea that they're going to give a lot of those guys a chance to play. I got to move on. I got to ask you about the running backs, Gore, Singletary, TJ Yeldon. Not the guys who in January, February, we thought were going to line up for the Buffalo Bills at running back.
Well, I think we thought they would be part of the equation, but I think a lot of people felt that until Singletary demonstrated an ability to handle the full complement of responsibility of what a running back in the NFL has to do, that it was largely going to be LaShawn McCoy and everybody else. Well, it's very clear that Devin Singletary accelerated his own learning curve and demonstrated and convinced this coaching staff as well as this front office that he can handle all 3 downs in an NFL setting and handle them capably. That's not to say he's going to be perfect. I'm sure he's still going to be making some rookie mistakes here and there through the course of the season because defenses are complex. They get exotic on 3rd down. I'm sure they'll cross him up every once in a while. But I think they feel having a veteran in Frank Gore and a guy who's been around the block a time or two in TJ Yeldon, that there's enough of a support mechanism there to complement Devin Singletary in a way that, this is going to be largely a running back by committee because Brandon Beane used that term and gave us a hint as to what we're looking at. And we said it a couple weeks ago, guys. We wouldn't be shocked if the offense from a running back perspective takes on a look of what New England has done over the years, knowing Brian Dable comes from that school where you have 3 and 4 guys rolling through and doing different things each and every given week. And I think that's what we're going to see here. And I think we also, while Singletary, I don't think we should expect Singletary to be this full-blown feature back. I think there is going to be a healthy mix here between him and Gore and even TJ Yeldon, who I think a lot of people are forgetting had 55 receptions last year in a support role behind Leonard Fournette in Jacksonville.
Feature back or not, Chris, give me your best guess at 4:15, 4:30 Sunday afternoon. Who winds up with the most touches for the Bills among that running back group, among those running backs?
I think they're going to ease Singletary in, and so because of that, I would expect Gore to maybe have a hair more of the work in terms of carries. I think Singletary and Yeldon are probably going to split some of the work in terms of receptions out of the backfield. So I think you're going to see a pretty balanced line across the board. But I think when all is said and done, maybe they lean a little bit more on the veteran in week 1 so as not to put too much on Devin Singletary's plate, especially knowing in week 1 there is more of the unknown in terms of what an opponent can throw at you, and we know Gregg Williams is going to be throwing the kitchen sink at this offense this week from the Jets' defensive perspective. And so because of that, I think Gore is on the field more on 3rd down because he's used to seeing more of those exotic looks. So I think at the end of the day, Gore probably has a hair more of the work than the other two.
All right, I bet you a quarter at Singletary, but we'll move on. Steve has a question.
I was going to ask you said about the pressure that Gregg Williams is known for, defensive coordinator of the Jets, former Bills head coach. He's a defensive coordinator that's been around the block, and that's his modus operandi. Brings a lot of pressure. Is Josh Allen going to be able to handle that? Is this offensive line going to come together? I mean, that's the $64 question for the Bills offense, is it not?
I think it's more than $64. But, yeah, I think they really have to mind their P's and Q's and really kind of study the history of Gregg Williams' defense and know how he likes to bring pressure from so many different places. They've been kind of a hybrid through the course of the preseason. So are they going to throw a true 4-3? Is it more 3-4? Is it a mix between the two? Might it change series to series? Who's dropping out in a zone blitz look and who's coming? They love to blitz the safety, Jamal Adams. Is that going to continue under Gregg Williams? I would anticipate that it would. So there's going to be a whole lot of things that they're going to have to be responsible for, and they're going to have to pick it all up. But it wouldn't surprise me if there's a portion of the game plan this week where there is a moving pocket, and they do get out on the move to buy Josh Allen some more time. Personally, I think Josh is more accurate on the move anyway. So I would be inclined to incorporate some moving pocket type plays for Josh so he can get out on the move and not have to worry about standing in there an extra half second and taking a shot from a Leonard Williams.
Chris, you know Gregg Williams like I do. He's going to want to he's going to want to make his mark on this game, first game of the Jets, right?
Well, he wants to do that every week. But yeah, so I think, yeah, he's going to want to set a tone. I think we know how he coaches his players. It's no nonsense. It's get the job done, and it's cross up an opposing offense every chance you get. They're going to throw the book at Josh Allen and the offense, and they're going to challenge them to come up with solutions, whether it's pre-snap or on the fly. So you want to talk about a measuring stick week one, this Jets defense is going to be that for Buffalo's offense.
One guy that's not practicing today, Andre Roberts, the Pro Bowl return guy for the Jets a year ago. Is he going to miss this opportunity to go back right from on week one and stick it to his old team?
I mean, we're reading between the lines here on the severity of the injury. It's a quad injury. Is it a contusion? Is it a pulled muscle? We don't know. But Coach McDermott called him day to day. So that leads me to believe that this is an injury that will benefit greatly by resting it today and then again tomorrow, because this team is not practicing on Thursday this week because they got their extra practice in on Monday. So he rests today, he rests tomorrow. It wouldn't shock me if he's back on the practice field Friday and then good to go on Sunday. We'll have to wait and see. But that day-to-day designation leads me to believe that come Friday, Saturday, there's probably a good chance we'll see Roberts out there getting the necessary reps to be ready for Sunday.
Chris Brown, Bills Insider, BuffaloBills.com at practice. I got one more for you, Chris, and it's not the obligatory question about defense because we feel like we're set on defense, but I just have a feeling that the Bills have plans for Ed Oliver this season, if not this Sunday, right? I mean, I just think we're going to see something from Ed Oliver, a look, a lineup, something that we did not see in the 4 preseason games. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you've got to measure that and balance that with how much you believe Ed can handle from a mental perspective. I think you'd rather have him playing fast and keeping his role simple rather than complicating his role and slowing him down because he's thinking. So if they feel that he can handle lining up in different places, well then, yeah, they'll absolutely do that. But if they don't, I think they keep his role rather simple because I think Ed has shown in one-on-one situations he can just win all by himself. You don't need to draw up anything elaborate for him. He's just good enough to win on his own. So I think that the task of the defensive staff here is more about getting him isolated matchups than it is about lining him up in all kinds of different places. So if there's a way to do that by leaving him inside, I think you just do that and let him go, and he's going to win more often than not anyway.
One of the things
so that's kind of my look at it.
One of the things we're seeing now on camera as we're watching practice is that our old friend Kyle Williams is back in town once again, standing in the hip pocket of Ed Oliver as he goes through the motions. Kind of interesting, and I think it makes a lot of sense to bring Kyle back after he spent a week early in training camp with Ed Oliver to come back and touch base again as they go into their first game. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, Lorenzo kind of clued me in that Kyle is going to be around from time to time, and he's going to be a guy that Lorenzo is going to be calling on the phone just about each and every week as they game prep. And the reason why, and I wrote a story about this on BuffaloBills.com earlier this week, Kyle Williams used to call all the pass rush games on obvious passing downs on the field. Used to, basically do all the film prep during the week, and then would call the pass rush calls and the twist and stunt games on the field live. They wouldn't get anything from the sideline. He would call it because the coaching staff trusted him. And so through the course of this offseason, they had to find a replacement player for that to do all of those things. And the primary guy, as I wrote in the story, is going to be Lorenzo Alexander, who's going to be calling a lot of those pass rush games. But the secondary guy will be Harrison Phillips. Now, he's not part of their primary pass rush package, but he is a guy who will rotate in from time to time. So when he is in the lineup, he will be calling those and let Lorenzo just kind of run free and listen to the call and go. Both of those guys really were kind of in Kyle's hip pocket. Obviously Lorenzo the last 3 years, he's kind of learned how to do that by osmosis almost. But Harrison really got to work on learning about Kyle's process of getting ready each week and learning how to make those kinds of calls. And Lorenzo confirmed Harrison is really good at it. So whenever Harrison's on the field, he's going to call it. But when Lorenzo's out there and it's not Harrison, he's going to be calling those. So it's something to keep an eye out for. And if you want to read more about how that all kind of came to pass, I wrote a story about it. It was up on Tuesday on BuffaloBills.com. It's still up there.
Can I just say, I bet over the last 5 years when he was here, I asked Kyle Williams hundreds of times whether he was interested in coaching when his playing career ended. And each time he said, no, absolutely not.
And there he is with a whistle.
There
around
he
his
is
neck.
with a whistle. And if he's not coaching, he's doing a pretty good impersonation. That's all I want to say. Chris?
All right. Well, it's out there now.
Thanks, Brownie.
Okay. Chris is done with us. Thank you, Chris.